Caustic is a ruthless killer. He's sociopathic and cares only for taking his experiments to the next level. At least that's what we're told, but maybe there's more story behind Caustic's personality than we first thought. Could it be possible that Caustic still has a heart behind that gas mask? Let's take a deep dive into Caustic's history, and then I'll share my theory on how there's still a chance for Caustic to turn back to humanity before falling into complete and utter sociopathy. So Caustic wasn't always the monster we know today. The Apex Games' smelliest contender was known as Alexander Knox. He worked as a scientist at Humbert Labs, a company responsible for creating pesticide. His job was essentially to create powerful enough pesticide to stop insects and other fauna from ruining crops. But Humbert Labs required more and more powerful formulas. I mean, have you seen flyers? They're pretty crazy. And during that drive for research, somewhere Alexander Knox became fascinated with the process. Perhaps at a turning point, Caustic was forced to test his formulas on living creatures to ensure it would work as intended. Now, most people at this point would feel pretty uncomfortable. They wouldn't enjoy it. But Caustic was heavily captivated by this, and he started to take his tests further in secret. But the Humbert Lab's chief, Dr. Franklin Humbert, found out about Caustic's experiments, and during their confrontation, the lab somehow ended up in flames. The death report suggested that Alexander Knox was killed in the accident too, but we know that isn't the case. Alexander Knox donned his rubber gloves and gas mask and became Caustic. He joined the Apex Games to take his test even further in what seems to be the most ridiculous supervillain costume ever. It's heavily suggested that Caustic even caused the accident himself so that he could continue his experimentation and take it to new levels. By season 3, it's safe to say that Caustic is still heavily engrossed by pushing his formulas to the next level. In the season 3 trailer, we can see all sorts of experiments being tested in his personal space in the dropship, although strangely, Caustic wasn't there. To me, this does suggest that Caustic really does have at least antisocial tendencies, but it's not really in line with what most people would consider a sociopath. He's not trying to make himself as the most popular, charming contender of the Apex Games. He's not charming, calm, or lovable. Instead, he has an unhealthy obsession with his science. Unfortunately, that particular science has something to do with ruthless, cruel formulas that can kill. Okay, so it is safe to say Caustic certainly is a little messed up. Sure, he's a little obsessed with creating dangerous chemicals that can torture and kill, but is he really too far gone? Okay, fine. The outlook is looking pretty grim so far, but I still have hope, so let's dig deeper. I think there's one key part of Caustic's personality that gives him the hope of getting in touch with his human side again. I don't think he's truly sociopathic. So, in terms of real sociopathy, every case is different. Caustic does certainly show a lot of signs of it though. For example, he has a grandiose sense of self, which means he just thinks he's really good. He bigs himself up. He comes across like he is of a higher intelligence, and his tests are for the greater good of science. His level of arrogance is very high, but it's not like a fake sense of arrogance like Mirage. He really believes the stuff he's saying. It's a pretty twisted way to look at things. Many high-functioning sociopaths like to come across as charming and lovable. They learn how to be a high-functioning member of society and try to make their way to the top. Caustic doesn't really fit this case, but then again, each case is different. But the biggest thing for me, for a sociopath, is that they show no empathy, remorse, or guilt. Well, okay, we can say safely that Caustic doesn't really show any signs of remorse or guilt, but empathy is a trickier one. Caustic clearly has a respect for other works of science. Caustic was there to give Wattson support when her father died. It makes sense. Watson's father was a great engineer, and I'm sure Caustic respected and appreciated his work. That, to me, looks like a bit of a slip of his portrayed character. Caustic is portrayed to have shown some empathy here. It sort of makes sense. For some, it's hard to feel truly empathetic unless you have experience or understanding of a situation. Caustic literally lives in a world of science and experimentation. Everything else is non-existent to Caustic, so when a respected engineer dies, it seems like Caustic actually showed up for once to show his respect and support for Wattson and her father. He has respect for other scientists and engineers, and thankfully, there is one more engineer in the Apex Games right now, and it could be really just what Caustic needs to get back in touch with humanity. I'm of course talking about Wattson. She created the ring technology, she created her interceptor pylons, and all of her kit is built by herself. For Caustic, this is something worth admiring and respecting. Voice lines from Caustic even explain how he shows interest in Wattson's work.
Interceptor here. A genius solution to a complex problem. Interceptor here. A genius solution to a complex problem. Interceptor pylon over there. A marvel of electrical engineering. Interceptor pylon over there. A marvel of electrical engineering. Interceptor pylon here.
These voice lines make it very clear that Caustic definitely admires Watson's work, which is really useful for Caustic's potential character development, because out of all of the legends, Watson may be the most important for Caustic to sort of make friends with. Wattson is perhaps the most innocent legend in the Apex games, almost a complete opposite of Caustic. It's exactly what Caustic needs. If Wattson was also a ruthless monster, I'd stop right now and say that Caustic has no hope. But Caustic may see Watson's interest in science and feel a sense of respect and maybe even pride to work alongside her. I feel like Wattson could show Caustic the good side of life, that science doesn't have to be cruel experimentation. Right now though, Caustic is cruel, violent, and kills without remorse, but he's not fascinated by killing or violence, he's fascinated with science. Killing kind of comes a close second, maybe. If Wattson could lead Caustic to the right side of life though, there may still be hope for Caustic yet. If you didn't know about Wattson's backstory, essentially she is the only legend in the arena right now that wasn't particularly looking to join it, so to speak. She was the daughter of the chief engineer of the syndicate who made the Apex games. So she was responsible for making the ring, but after her father died, she didn't really know where to look. She ended up joining the games kind of just because I guess the syndicate saw her skills and ability and thought she should join. So she's not really a killer, or she wasn't. She's never been a mercenary. She's very innocent, and she looks to the people in the Apex games as her family in some strange way, which is really strange when they're seen fighting each other. But that's why I still believe in my original Legends Never Die theory video. Either way, that means that because of this innocence and her affiliation with science and technology, she is the perfect person for Caustic to kind of spend time with. So it could go one of two ways. I mean, if this story does develop, maybe Caustic will become kinder and learn about the good things in life, or maybe Caustic will influence Wattson in a bad way. So that's another thing to think about too. Now, things aren't looking too great though. I mean, the future is pretty bleak when you consider Caustic's environment is the Apex games, where he gets to put his violence and aggression to their full capabilities. So the chances are slim that Caustic will be able to retain his humanity, but if anybody can do it, it's Wattson. I hope that we get to see this story play out. It's clear that there's some notice of it by the story writers for Apex Legends, or maybe they just want to let the world burn and let Caustic go even further into darkness. I'm not sure. Either way, I hope we get to see Caustic's story play out even more. We have plenty of opportunity in the future to learn more about each legend's backstories, but there's far more room for stories to develop too. There was a lot of hope for a PvE mode in Apex Legends, and now that Overwatch 2 has dropped, I'm still holding on to that hope. And if you want to see more theory videos, let me know. I'm curious to see what legends you'd like to know more about next. I have quite an interesting idea on Mirage and kind of his personality. He comes across as this kind of really confident player, but we all know that inside he's probably the most scared legend out of them all, and I kind of feel a bit sorry for him that he's somehow got into this mess. And then we have Lifeline, who is supposed to be this healer, but we're kind of seeing this strange, almost evil side to her, especially in the season 3 trailer where she's acting like really maniacal. So that's an interesting thing to look at too. And then we also have the story about Crypto. I feel like that's been covered pretty well, but there are some elements like he goes into the games and takes chips from people when they get knocked. What is that chip? Could that be something related to the Legends Never Die video I made? Maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, there are so many opportunities for stories in this game. I really love it. Alright, thank you for watching. The support on my lore and theory videos has been incredible, so I want to thank you all for coming by and sharing your own thoughts with me. I'm really excited to learn more about this awesome universe. If you didn't know already, I also love the gameplay, and I stream most days over on twitch.tv/thegamingmerchant, and I have plenty of guides and tips that I do as well. So hopefully I can catch you on my live stream. If you're new here, what kind of other Apex Legends content do you like to watch? I'm really curious to know. I've grown so much over the last few weeks, so there's a lot of new people. Introduce yourselves, let me know who you are, what you like doing. I love to chat down in the comments, so hopefully I'll see you there. If not, maybe I'll catch you on my live stream. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the comments. Cheerio!